Hey guys, it's Riley back for our second video on cognitive functions and uh, the behaviors that they lead to, mostly the negative behaviors that they lead to, and how to better balance those with their um, unconscious correlating functions, their corresponding unconscious functions. So for introverted thinking, extroverted thinking, and for extrovert intuition, introvert intuition, and so on. Anywho, today we're doing the second one, so it's extroverted intuition and the negative behavior associated with extroverted intuition. Second slot function or parent function is, more of an attitude, but it's going to be pessimism. Extrovert intuition, pessimism. Uh, Extrovert intuition in the second slot is pretty interesting. Um, Obviously, it appears a lot different than when you're talking about ENPs like ENTPs and ENFPs. Um, a lot of times, people totally overlook it, and I can see why, because INPs don't talk about this function so much. It's more like to get that function out of them, or to read extrovert intuition in like an INTP, you have to pay closer attention to what they're saying and like look into how they're thinking to really pick up on their extrovert intuition, because it more just appears in the manner in which they're thinking. They're not so much using it blatantly, and it's something that I picked up on recently. Just having conversations with people, because a lot of the times, when using my extrovert intuition, I would, call things before they happened, and even bring up those things later. But I wouldn't even bring up that I had told them that this was going to happen before. Um, so a lot of people just totally don't realize that INTP is using their extrovert intuition. And when I say that they don't realize that they're using it, I don't exactly mean that people aren't like, oh, he's not using extrovert intuition. I'm saying that people pick up on cognitive functions whether they know them or not, whether they know what they're picking up on. It's just a name to a behavior that people, you know what it is but don't name. Anyways, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but yeah, extrovert intuition parent or second slot function for INPs, and we're talking about INTPs, is definitely really pessimistic. The INTPs tend to think in terms of what could go wrong all the time, and this this was and still is pretty prevalent in my thinking, especially when I was younger, especially when it came to like my political philosophies and such. A lot of them centered around things going downhill and things getting worse all the time. So yeah, it's interesting to see how it appears in INTPs, but um, the way that the positive the negative repercussions of this way of thinking comes in the form of, if you always think that everything is getting worse and you're focused on how things are getting worse, you're going to be more cautious than you need to be. That was definitely and still is a pretty prevalent theme in my life, was cautiousness, or being very cautious about everything that I did. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely times that I just throw it out the window. It'd be interesting to like pick apart what was going on psychologically with me when I did that. But anyways, yeah, I tend to be a very cautious person, and INPs are do tend to be pretty cautious. Not that that's a bad thing, um, all the time. It's not always a bad thing. It means that I don't usually make very dumb and bad decisions that a lot of other people would tend to make. But obviously, this leads to the problem of me not making any decision, or not making very many decisions, I guess. Um, so yeah, the way to solve this problem, which I'm getting to, is uh, doing things. Actually, you're just forcing yourself to do things is going to end up making you a lot more optimistic with your intuition functions, um, and that's it's almost not so much that you're being more optimistic with it. It's that you know that even if this bad thing does happen, like, it's not going to be that bad, or it's not going to negatively affect you very much. And obviously, what I'm talking about sounds a lot like I'm talking about introverted sensing, and the repercussions of like introverted intuition in an INTP is obviously going to um, affect introverted sensing, third slot function. So there's really no way to like totally separate when I'm talking about these functions. But yeah, the way to overcome this is to make decisions for change, and to overcome your, really deep anxiety about making decisions in general. Um, yeah, so there's actually, I could say a lot about this. I've had a lot of um, experience with this function, with introverted intuition and extroverted intuition, in terms of like it growing and getting more strong, and me being less cautious with it. Um, as you can see right now, I'm living in poverty, but it's okay. It's self-inflicted poverty, so it's all right. But in actuality, the reason my living situation is the way it is because I decided to make a decision, and it's not as bad as I might have scared myself into thinking. I could have stayed in the same place, um, and I've made a lot of bigger decisions in the past year or so, and I could have decided to stay comfortable, but I wanted to put myself in a different position, we'll say. I'm not going to say a bad position, but, putting myself out on my own is a big part of it. If there's people that you rely on super heavily as an INTP, you should probably, I'm not saying like you need to like ditch your friends and family exactly, but like you should at least be exploring. I mean, positively used extrovert intuition has a lot to do with exploring, and exploring different things is a huge part of how you're going to get better as an INTP, whether it's like career-wise, or I don't know, faith-wise, or philosophically, or ideologically, just in terms of anything, exploration. I mean, you want to make sure that like when you're exploring different things, you're actually having your introvert sensing experience it rather than just like thinking that you're exploring it by researching it and being like, oh, that's what it's like. I don't need to actually try. Yeah, you actually do need to try, not just because of that specific thing that you're gonna experience, and to decide whether you like it or not, basically, but also just to strengthen the function in general. So, yeah. Um, let's see. What else do I have to say about this? I mean, it does actually apply socially as well. So there's two hurdles to overcome socially in terms of exploring and putting yourself out there, which is obviously you're overcoming extroverted feeling inferior. But yeah, I mean, putting yourself out there enough to like say things to people and meet new people. I mean, when I moved to the area that I'm at now, um, I explored it beforehand, which is always a good thing to do. But as you can see, I was introverted, intuition, critic, function, hesitant about it, and I explored the area beforehand on vacation. And guess what? Like on vacation, I met people that I like got a really good living situation to live at, where I met a bunch of people because it was this very like public house kind of, I don't know, it's a little hard to explain, but basically I found something really great when I did that, when I explored and effectively took advantage of that opportunity and used it to its full potential. Got what I needed out of it and left there, as you can see. But yeah, like, yeah, being optimistic with your extrovert intuition is basically using your introvert intuition more. Another way to get over this better is, well, there's two things that I want to talk about in getting over it. Is one, when you have, when you feel your introvert intuition like bubbling up inside of you, like you want something, you have this goal, commit yourself to it as soon as possible. Like, force yourself to commit to that. Obviously, I'm not saying like commit yourself before you're ready or like without really thinking about it. I'm just saying that like if you're really excited about something, don't wait until next week when you're like, oh, I don't actually know if that was a good idea. I actually think that's a bad idea. Like, I don't know, it sounds really uncomfortable. What if this happens? What if that? What if that happens? Like, I don't know. You're not going to know unless you try, is what I'm trying to say. Um, so, yeah, commit yourself to things when you want to do them, and it doesn't really mean you have to stick with them, obviously. In fact, the more you try different things and like force yourself out of your comfort zone and like make yourself more comfortable making bigger decisions like that, the more comfortable you are with leaving the comfortable people and situations that you have with you right now. So it's like, I don't know, obviously, say like that you live with your parents or something. That's a really comfortable situation because you've lived with them your whole life, that you're not going to want to leave. Well, what I'm saying is, once you've left them and then maybe you made some other big decisions in your life by yourself, then what happens is if there's a situation that isn't that great, you're more willing to leave it. You're more willing to give up then because they're a dime a dozen. I mean, in reality, it's a big world out there. Like, there's a lot of good things and a lot of good places to go and a lot of great things to explore. So you really don't have to be that careful about it. But yeah, once you have some experience under your belt, if you don't like a situation or you don't like these friends, once you have that experience of like going out on your own, you're kind of like, well, I don't have to put up with this, and that leads to a higher degree of self-respect and stuff, and people sense that. I mean, and you can say that too. I mean, I put myself out there in that way where I'm like, okay, I mean, if you're going to disrespect me in that way, then I'm going to leave and you're not going to see me anymore. So, you know, that's another positive aspect of that. The other thing I want to talk about with, it's more with introvert intuition actually, is just to plan ahead. I mean, I know that like as a INTP, you don't really like to plan things or like commit yourself to like a rigid plan, which is fine. But like by making a plan and like having different auxiliary like plan A, plan B, plan C type thing in your head when you're doing things makes it way, way, way easier to do things and like actually write it down when you're thinking about your plans. So that, I mean, that makes it takes a lot of the pressure off of being scared to make a decision when you do it that way, and when you um, make plans and like have more of a like doing the research and like having a backup plan and stuff takes a lot of the pressure off of you when you're making that big decision, which will be super helpful. But anyways, yeah, that's basically like it's pessimism versus exploration. So yeah, tell me what you guys think about this. I would love to hear from like older INTPs who I think have probably had a lot more experience with this. Um, but yeah, that's all I really have to say about the second function. So hope you guys got something valuable out of that.